Many thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks to Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton for bringing this to the agenda. I'm going to try to do what I do best, which is clear up a little constitutional confusion that may be on the floor here right now. America began with 13 states, the 13 original colonies. We've admitted 37 states, which means the vast majority of the states came in after. None of them have been admitted by constitutional amendment. All of them have been admitted by a simple act of Congress, which is what is being proposed here in the statehood legislation. Now, my good friend from Louisiana invokes the District Clause, which is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, which says that Congress shall exercise exclusive legislation over the seat of government, the land that is ceded from other states. That is precisely the provision which gives Congress the power to modify the seat of government, as it did in 1846, as the gentleman pointed out. When the district was first formed by the cession of lands from Virginia and Maryland in 1791, when it was accepted during that decade when people continued to vote back in Maryland or Virginia, and then with the passage of the Organic Act in 1801, when that happened, it was very clear that Congress had the right to define the boundaries of the district. When the lands were retroceded to Virginia in 1846, that 10-mile square that fit the original constitutional language was shrunk. It was modified, and Congress had the clear power to do that, to modify the land that is in the seat of government. That's precisely what's being proposed by the gentlelady's legislation here, which is, again, to shrink the land and to cede the land to the new state, which would be admitted under our power under Article 4. Every state has been admitted by Congress under Article 4. And as the gentleman from Virginia points out, a number of states used to be part of other states. So Maine was once part of Massachusetts. Vermont was once part of New York. West Virginia was once part of Virginia. Kentucky was once part of Virginia. So
we've lost a lot.
The point I want to make is that when my state, in its patriotism and generosity, ceded the land to Congress for the purposes of the seat of government, certainly it was not anticipated that hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people over the centuries would be disenfranchised as a result of it. But in any event, we ceded the land in absolute fee simple in property terms. That is, we gave it to Congress the way that Virginia gave its land to Congress. Then it becomes up to Congress under its powers under the seat of government clause, under the district clause, to decide what to do with it. It can enlarge it, it can shrink it, it can use it for other purposes. But if you go back and you look at that grant of land from Maryland to Congress, it was an absolute fee simple. It was an irrevocable grant of land to Congress to decide. So Congress has authority over what to do with it. Now, the reason why you have, I think, the vast majority of the members of the Maryland delegation on Congresswoman Norton's legislation is because we believe in democratic self-government. We believe that everybody has a right to participate in America. Thomas Jefferson said that there would be territories in America, there would be land where people would not have political equality, but eventually they would come into political equality. That was the whole design of the Northwest Ordinance. The good gentleman from Ohio belongs to a state that was not one of the original states. It was added on with the expansion westward. And of course, there were objections made that the people there weren't really ready for self-government and they weren't really up to the task and so on. We've seen those kinds of arguments historically in America. But my God, is there any self-respecting member in this committee or in the chamber who would not be fighting, as Congresswoman Norton is, for the democratic equality and rights of her constituents? I don't think so. We're the only nation on earth where the residents of the capital city are disenfranchised in their national legislature. And our whole revolution was designed to combat the evils of what they called virtual representation, that the people in the colonies would be virtually represented by other people in Parliament. The whole point of democracy is you get to choose your own leaders. You get to have the people that you want represent you and your interests and your values. So I can't even imagine what it was like for the people sitting in this audience today to be watching the impeachment trial in the Senate, knowing that they did not have anybody who was getting to vote on the person that they helped to elect or not to the presidency of the United States. I yield back to the chair.
Who seeks recognition? Mr. Green is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. In 1982, I took the oath to defend the Constitution of the United States on the plain at West Point. I was 17 years old. At the time, I didn't really know all the depth of what that meant. I didn't know where that oath would take me at the time, but it took me a lot of interesting places like Afghanistan and Iraq